Hi, I'm Gillian Utesch. I am the host of a Superwoman Handbook and the author of A White Collar Wife. A White Collar Wife is my personal story through love, loss, and joy. You can listen to it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you catch your podcast. This is probably the most insane episode of a Superwoman Handbook that I've ever recorded of A White Collar Wife. The fact that this story is nonfiction absolutely shakes my trust in gravity, in humanity. It makes me question, is the world truly round? I mean, or are cats going to push things off the edge of it? It is that removed from rational thought that, yeah, but it is true. This is a nonfiction story. And so I wanted to name it The Chapter No One Should Write, because this chapter should not be written in anyone's book. It should not be written in a Superwoman handbook. It shouldn't be written, anywhere. But here we are. And so we decided to name it No Good Deed. And by the end, you'll realize kind of how we arrived at that titling. So let's rewind back previously on A White Collar Wife. When I started doing this podcast as a way to help other women who were I had interviewed them on a Superwoman handbook. So I knew I wasn't alone in this kind of high conflict insanity situation. To the degree that I am in it now is still shocking, but I knew that I wasn't alone, and I wanted to help bring kind of water back to those who are truly in their height of it now. Let them know you're not alone. You're seen, you're heard, and we're here for you. And so in doing that and sharing the story of my divorce journey with he understandably felt away, which really did my heart good to know, because everyone I spoke to about it before doing it are like, he's not going to give a shit. He's proud of what he did. Do you think Jeffrey Dahmer gets upset every time somebody makes a documentary about him? No, you're talking about what he's done. And in theory, as humans, as responsible adults, we don't do things that we're not proud of. We don't do things that we wouldn't want the whole world to know about. So, okay, yeah. So in sharing the truth of what happened, yeah, I'm with you people. Okay. But in the end, he did feel away. And so my thought was, okay, the story's not over. If you don't like how you're being portrayed in the story of your own life, you have the power to change it. You have the power to change your behavior. You have the power to change the truth. But nope, we didn't choose door A. We chose door B. And of course, I'm sure he exhausted every effort of trying to get, a First Amendment. And y'all know, I mean, the Constitution, when Betsy Ross sewed it in the flag, I mean, that is here to stay. And so he, I'm sure, investigated that first, was told, beep, beep, back that bus up. First Amendment's going to stand against all extreme situations. And so he still needed to find a way to get me not to have his name or his image associated with the podcast. Totally, totally get that. We were essentially in a phase of self-fulfilling prophecy. He didn't want his story shared on the podcast because he wasn't proud of it, but he didn't want to change the story to depict events and actions that he could be proud of. It was definitely, honestly, almost like our marriage. I think there were many times in our marriage I would say, you are creating self-fulfilling prophecy. And he wanted more sex, y'all. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I am a huge fan of sex. I am a huge fan of having sex in a marriage. But what kept being the issue and kept asking for help with our intimacy, and my answer was always the same: quit being an asshole. Quit doing things that make me not want to be around you. Quit doing things that I find unattractive. And kind of the big takeaway is, you can't get the body to romantically want someone if your heart doesn't feel safe with them. And my heart never felt safe with. So that really made just, it's biology, y'all. It's life on life's terms. Like, I can't get there mentally. I can't get there from a hormonal perspective. I just can't get there if my heart is not in a place with that person. So He could just never resist that loop, and that I feel bad. I feel bad for him because that could have really impacted a lot of things in our marriage. Okay, so back to the podcast and him feeling away. The First Amendment did pose a little hurdle, as we just talked about, but with enough billable hours, his attorney found a little and with some elbow grease, and found a creative solution through a DVPO. Now, I find the irony of this absolutely adorable because it's a domestic violence protective order. What have we been talking about the last few months on a white collar wife, white collar domestic violence, and how it is around us in so many ways, but because we don't talk about it and we don't know how to identify the signs, it's very easy to look past families, relationships with beautiful front doors and their doctor, lawyer, Indian chief professions, and they're held in a high position in the church. It's really easy to look past these people and think that they could be absolute assholes or that they could abuse people in ways that you can't see through financial control, emotional, familiar relationships, all those things that I won't rehash here, but it was not lost on me that the creative tool he found to try to get around First Amendment was a DVPO. So I've been in court a lot over the last year getting divorced, even though even I can't tell you what we've been doing. I was trying to record a podcast about that I was trying to write a chapter and record a podcast about that for a white collar wife. And I couldn't even with the timeline of all the filings and all the documentation, what did we do? What did we do for a year? What did I pay my attorney? Love her. She's super cute. Love her. But what did I pay her 100 grand for? Nearly 100 grand. I mean, where's my 100 grand of Louis Vuitton? Where's my 100 grand of, being free from this situation? And it is just, anywho, what we've been dealing with for the last year, doing the equitable distribution and, all those things. And that has been, I talked about that in another podcast where, there's 3 steps to getting divorced. You have to wait a year, you have to sign I don't, and you have to split your shit up. So just getting a certificate of divorce does not satisfy the separation of assets. And that's where we've continued to have a hiccup. But anywho, not to get down that. So while I've been in court many times dealing with all of that, I've seen these no contact cases come up over and over again because it is so prevalent in our community, kind of these eighth grade toxic, da, 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 da. And each time I saw them come through, it was quick and dirty, y'all. One of them says they don't want to talk to the other one. The other one either has an attorney or doesn't because they're going to fight that. The burden of proof to document why you still need access to a person who doesn't want you to have access to them is monumental. I've not seen anyone actually in the multitude of them I've seen, just witnessing in a public courtroom. I'm waiting for my turn. No one has beat that. So the best thing I saw to do was just to go in and voluntarily consent to it because that's ultimately how I saw most of those play out. The guy would say this, the girl would say this, da 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 da, and then the judge would be like, "Hey, can we just voluntarily? You people clearly don't need to talk to each other anymore. Can we just voluntarily agree to this?" And they'd both voluntarily agree to it, and whatever. Unless it's a situation like, and I won't go into it in this podcast, that was living with me since the end of 2025, and I thought it was gonna be a great thing. I thought that it was gonna be like having a sleepover every night. I thought I was gonna be able to share my life and space with someone without having to be in a romantic relationship with them because that adds, extra pressure that I did not want or need. But yeah, she ended up being true schizophrenic crazy, and we needed a DVPO against her after she crawled in the window at 3 a.m. But again, separate podcast. But I draw those parallels for you to understand there are truly situations that warrant this tool, this resource, this use of court hours. And I was thinking about that too. Yes, there's cost of court each time you go, but is that really covering the cost of the bailiff, the judge, the all of this, nonsense? It can't. It can't possibly. Some of that's got to be falling on the taxpayers. We do have some appointments booked with commissioners to help us understand where in this journey, where do the bills fall for the taxpayer in regard to court, in regard to public defenders, in regard to jail. How does that impact a taxpayer? Because That's key too. So back to the DVPO. You walk in, you don't want to, this person doesn't want to talk to this person. You both just consent to it and you move the frack on with your life. Okay. Like it's not a big deal. I was also completely okay with having a DVPO with because just seeing him in court takes me back in my mind to being married to him and my chest starts feeling tight. Anxiety then joins the party and I just feel this weight and then I start getting paranoid about what eggshell I'm going to walk on. So, no, I didn't mind at all having a no contact order. But what I didn't understand was that he wasn't going to let me off that easy. Instead of being like all the cases I'd seen before where each person agreed to it and they moved on, his attorney pushed back and said, no, even though she's voluntarily consenting to it, we want to have a full trial about it. Okay. You want to have a full trial to not make me have a DVPO or a full trial to get the result I've already agreed to give you? Uh, Again, rational thought doesn't usually fit in these scenarios with. And so then it clicked to me. We're here for sport, as we usually are, because he likes to play with his food before he eats it. So we're here for sport. And also, that's when I realized he was angling for kind of that little scratch at First Amendment. What he wanted was his name removed. That's why we beep it out now because we are very, very happily complying with the court order. So he wanted his name removed and his image, which we had used for the original book cover, which was a side profile of our wedding day, which I thought was super adorable. But, he felt a way about that. And so that's what he ultimately wanted. We weren't going back and forth. I don't even know where he lived. I mean, if I dug through a Iron Mountain box of court papers, I could probably find his address. But off the top of my head, I don't know where he lives. I don't know his phone number by heart. I don't know, and so we really weren't having those contact situations. So going back to the hour. So we go through the whole thing of the hour. We realize that's what he wants. I agree to give him that. We all go our separate ways. Okay, great. Thank God I didn't pay my attorney $400 an hour for that, is what I thought as soon as I got in my car. Well, like most things in this journey, I allowed myself to think too soon, to think that we're through, to think that it's over, to think that there's not one more flying monkey out there about to come and get me because I'm just a girl here trying to get her shit split up. Okay. Like I'm not here. I didn't sign, I didn't subscribe to this journey that I'm on. When I didn't read the fine print and, like the Santa Claus, turn it upside down with a magnifying glass. What I didn't read in the fine print of the DVPO is that it essentially gives a 100% open ticket to put me in jail. Because if you think about it, the spirit of these is those high conflict, those back and forth, the couples that go to do a kid exchange and can't because one of them that is why. And that to me makes sense. That's valid. But when you try to apply a tool like that to a situation like this, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. So that gives him an open ticket to have me put in jail. I do not pass go. I do not see a magistrate. I do not get a trial. It is a witch. I am hung as a witch without any intervening of authorities. And if I had known this at the onset of this agreement, I would have vocalized from the beginning. I agree to all this. I'll take his name out. I'll take the photos off. I'll do all of that. But I do not agree to someone like him having a wand, a weapon, an opportunity to that degree. He can't be trusted with it. Yes. And it came to be known. So that's exactly what happened. He sent me to jail. And even now saying it is very hard for me because if I want to go to jail, I want like a cool story, right? Like some Bonnie and Clyde, like, the Beyonce and Jay-Z video, like, I want a cool story. I did get arrested in Mexico in college and that does have a cool story. So now I guess I can say I've been imprisoned in 2 countries and both were because of men. But okay, I'm just making this thought in my mind now, putting the 2 brain cells are rubbing together. So how did I come to find myself in jail? Well, here's where we start. Let's pick up on Friday, April 20th. The sheriff comes to my front door. I think, okay, no big deal. He's here all the time. as you can listen to, I think it's in episode 8, I talk about my relationship with the sheriff's department just through all of this last year. So I'm like, okay, is he stopping by for a snack? Is he stopping by to say hi? Or does he have actual business? And I was, at this time evicting skits from my house. So there was a lot of activity in that arena. But where we were in that timeline, I wasn't expecting any, correspondence to come. So I opened the door. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah. And he's like, hey, I'm looking for Jane. I'm sorry. It was like he said he's looking for my underground prohibition storage, cellar. Like it was just so like, and so I asked him to repeat it. I said, you're looking for who? Can you repeat this? And he said, I'm looking for Jane. Did want to jump in real quick and clarify because her's my baby. Jane did absolutely nothing wrong. I know I mentioned about how the sheriff came by over criminal charges, and that's what really got me concerned. My girl's golden, okay? She was just a witness in some shit. So please do not think, by the way it was told just now, that she did anything wrong. Blow me over. My heart literally stopped. And I knew it was the fact that I even know this shit is absolutely ridiculous. But I knew it was criminal by the way it didn't have a green sheet and the way it was written, the little top left thing. And so I was like, oh my God, why is the sheriff looking for something criminal for Jane? Um, in my mind, as any parent would, disclosure, Jane is not my biological child, but I raised her as my own for 7 years. So get your panties out of a twist. Okay, so my mind goes everywhere of what could be wrong, what could be happening. Is she in a ditch? Is she in a car accident? Was she abducted by a cartel? Like, I mean, my mind is filling in the story, the narrative that I don't have. And so she is over 18 now, so I respect that that's her personal business. But I just to calm my own nerves and to keep me from jumping off the roof, I was like, hey, what is it? Is she hurt? Is she injured? Does she need help? Like, I'm in my pajamas, but I will be there, like, right now. But he goes, no, 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 it's fine. It's fine. Do you have her father? I was like, she lives with her father. And so he asked for her father's her address, which of course I don't know because we don't engage with each other. Thank God we got that DVPO, right? That no contact. And so I didn't have it, and I said, "Oh, let me go get my phone. I can give you his phone number." He's because I'm trying at this point not to obstruct justice. Like I'm trying to, okay, the sheriff's here looking for her on a criminal matter. I need to be a good citizen. I have a moral and ethical obligation to help him find her, even if she was in the wrong. Like I have an obligation to help them complete that activity, that quest. And so I just out of reflex, I texted. Very simple, clean, straightforward text message. I said, hey, the sheriffs are looking for Jane. I don't really have any details. I also don't have your information to give him. So, basically, you need to proactively follow up. Didn't call his mama fat. Didn't talk about how she chest bumped me in the driveway. Didn't talk about how our sex life sucked when we were married. Like, I didn't go into any of that. I very simply communicated a message of safety, which is not a crime. Unless you're in the absolutely twisted situation like I was in with the DVPO, with the motive of the podcast. He wastes no time. He does not pass go. He does not collect $200. He goes right down to the magistrate and gets a warrant for my arrest. Now, what magistrate signs that? That was the question that was asked all night long when I was in jail amongst the staff. And I think there was honestly some animosity because everyone I met in jail from a corrections officer kind of perspective, they really take their job seriously. They really, not in like, I'm going to keep you locked up, but they really kept their job as a community servant, a community servant. They took it very seriously. And they had a lot of honor around it. And so to have it basically made into a toy, which is what did. He made it into a toy that he weaponized. They took great offense to that. And everyone was very curious what magistrate signed this. Even when I was getting booked into jail that night, and I go to the magistrate, which people were beside me, everyone goes to jail for different reasons. Nobody is better than anybody else, or no reason, except I do want a cool story to tell, but like Bonnie and Clyde. But everyone is there for a reason of their own. And so they were seeing the magistrate and they're all bonding out. They're bonding out. They've got 6 priors. They're bonding out. And I'm like, okay, I don't even have a parking ticket. I'm going to wait my little line and turn, my little turn in line. and I'm gonna get to the magistrate, and I'm gonna, be released on my own, recognizance, or I'm gonna, pay a bond or whatever, but I'm gonna not gonna be here long, is what I'm thinking. Well, I get to the magistrate, and, I recognize him just because I've been working with him on other stuff with this whole fiasco, prior to this. And of course, my name is so unique. He's like, "Hey, I think didn't you come in here when your husband was stalking you?" And I said, "Yes." And you helped me put together, my claim for that. And so he goes, "Why are you here now?" And I said, "Honestly, I don't know." Because when I got picked up, it was so fast, and it's not something that you expect to ever happen in your life. So my brain is having to, it's like seeing colors when you're in the nail salon, and you see colors that you don't know. Like, is that Cajun shrimp or is that poppy orange? I don't know. Like, my brain didn't even know how to articulate or how to label or classify what was going on. It was so insane. But I just knew that they picked me up, put my hands behind my back, wouldn't let me be, and I'm like, "Hey, guys, can I be in the front? Like, can I put my hands in the front?" "Nope, sorry, DV, if it's domestic violence, it's a whole separate protocol." Of course, I'm in this weird limbo. Okay, so, and it's about 35 minutes from my house to the jail, which I, of course, had to ride with my hands behind my back, which was super fun and comfortable. And even then, I wasn't communicated. So the magistrate pulls up the document, and he goes, and I said, What's it say?" And he passes it across the table, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, and I turn it over, and I'm, because I'm racking my brain. I'm like, I haven't even accidentally bumped into to in Harris Teeter, which has been a fear. Like, I thought that I was gonna violate it in some very human way, which I ultimately did it, like, technically, but I did not, in my mind, even in that moment, I wasn't remembering that text message that I had sent him, which is the only one I sent. And so I read the word text message, and made the same sound. I said, and so I tell the magistrate basically what I just told you. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I am so sorry." He goes, "I can't even." He goes, I pull up your record. You don't even have a parking ticket, but I can't even bond you out because you're in this special classification of DV. You have to see a judge." Okay. How do we do that? How do we get me to a judge so I can, explain how absolutely fucked up this is? And yes, I sent a text message, but I did not commit a crime. Like, let's just get this all clear. And so, to say nothing of, I didn't need to be there. It was becoming very clear to me at the longer I stayed, just how many people were coming through there. And that space, again, I'm not better than anybody. And this is not to say that I won't ever do something in the future, Bonnie and Clyde style, that will justify. But in that moment, it did not justify the taxpayers of Wake County or the pursuit of justice for Wake County for me to be there. I was there because someone had their dick in a twist. And that is absolutely just, I don't even want to say wrong. It's inhumane on so many levels because that impacted so many people. But anyway, so he goes, I'm like, "Okay, how do I get to the judge?" "You can't be seen until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning." "I'm sorry, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning?" It's like 10 o'clock at night at this point. And I think I got picked up about 8:30. I never leave the house. Y'all hear me talk about this. COVID change. I was changed during COVID. And I realized that I don't like going to the grocery store. I don't need to walk down every aisle to figure out what box of ramen I want. Like, just put one in the cart and keep going. And so I've been doing grocery delivery ever since. Love it. Never going. If I can't get something delivered to my house, I often just skip on having it entirely. And so, but in this situation, I'm neurodivergent. I've talked about that on many of our podcasts. And so one of the medications that I take is a controlled substance. So they can't mail it in my 90-day pack like they normally do. I have to actually go to the CVS and Target and pick it up, sign 3 times and show my birth certificate, and, do the secret password for the, for the room to get in. It's kind of like those speakeasies. And so I'd gone to Target to pick that up, and I saw a girlfriend in the parking lot, and we ended up getting in the most freak ass fender bender, in the Target parking lot. And so, of course, it's Target, private property. They're just exchanging information, and I guess I was acting weird, because, and this is the part I don't fully remember from my own experience, just from what was said to me. I had hit my rib and my head. I didn't have a seatbelt on because I wasn't planning on going anywhere. I was just sitting in her car. And so I kind of come to at the urgent care, and the first thing that they said is, you have a broken rib, a bruised rib. We're pretty sure a concussion because you failed your concussion test. And I'm like, no, I don't have a concussion. I've just been working a zillion hours over the last, few months, and I'm tired. And then it was kind of whispered, yeah, and you should probably get home and kind of I forget how they said, your business sorted or your life sorted or basically get your ducks in a row because the sheriff is on the way for you. When they ran my license for medical, I guess to kind of make sure I wasn't a John Doe or to figure out or a Jane Doe or make sure that I wasn't or what my health insurance was or whatever. I guess it's protocol, which makes sense. Like if someone came in the ER with a gunshot wound, we'd want to know if there was a warrant. I get it. And so it popped up that I had a warrant. Again, what in the actual February, right? And so I skedaddle back home and I'm kind of trying to like process this, knowing that the sheriff is on the way and this time for me, not for, to have a snack or say hi or, serve something, whatever. And my mind is just racing and I'm kind of trying to get everything sorted. Well, as my life is running parallel to this event, my other housemate we've been having a lot of altercations with skits on her way out, and again, that's a whole other podcast, so I won't go down that rabbit hole, but she had made a pretty direct threat on his life. Even I was uncomfortable reading the note. So I did feel justified that and again, he didn't know about the fender bender at Target. Well, he knew I had texted him, but he didn't know, the next part, the warrant part, and that part because I didn't know about it at that time. When the fender bender happened, I just said, "Hey, it wasn't a fender bender. I'm at the urgent care. Everything's okay. I may need a ride home, or I don't know." Like, well, anywho, that was where the update had ended at that point. And so I get home, he's like, "Hey, the sheriff's on the way." And I'm like, "Yes, I know." And then I share him. He goes, "No, that's not why." I called him because I need to report a life threat. So anyway, it was these two things running absolutely parallel that were also absolutely insane. And so the sheriff gets here just a few, moments later, and they're talking to him. And then next thing I know, like 4 cars show up. And I'm like, that's the paddy wagon for me. That's how I'm gonna go, that's how I'm gonna, go down. So they came up and like, "Jillian," and it was so weird because I was in my kitchen, a kitchen that I've had deputies in many times before, dealing with one of 500 other things. But my kitchen is also, and I don't think this is just because I'm a woman. I think a lot of men cook, are very avid cookers. And that's a very special space for me. Cooking is very relaxing. I enjoy going into my kitchen to cook and just kind of decompress from the world. So it was very much a disconnect in my brain for me to be in there. And the one deputy is like, "Okay, we need you to put your hands behind your back. Oh, before you do that, take all your bracelets and your watch off." And I'm like, the fuck? Like, again, I'm thinking that this is just gonna be I don't know the reason why I'm getting arrested still at this point. I don't find that out until 9 o'clock at night with the magistrate, 10 o'clock at night with the magistrate. But I'm thinking this has gotta be a misunderstanding. Like, what in the actual, like, whatever. So I'm thinking it's basically, again, I don't know the legal system, but in my mind, this is just gonna be an on paper arrest. They're just gonna arrest me on paper. We're gonna go through a little process. I'll have to come back at some date in the future and say how crazy this is. Like, again, this is not going to be what it ultimately ended up being. What was my thought in that moment? And so they're like, "Okay, take your bracelets off, put your hands against the wall, and we need to, spread your legs. We need to pat you down." And in that moment, I'm like, I'm not getting, like, I'm getting a pat down, not like an airport security level pat down, but a like pat down. And I'm taking my jewelry off. And one of the deputies is asking, "Where's your cell phone? You need to bring your cell phone with you so you have numbers to call." I'm sorry? Because you know how it is. I don't even know my mama's number. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have anyone's number memorized. And he's like, "Yeah, you're gonna need to, to call for, he didn't say call for help, but you're gonna need to make calls while you're down at Hammond Road." And that was kind of their soft way of saying jail because the jail is on Hammond Road. And I could see if they'd said, "While you're in jail," I would have, you know, but hearing just while you're at Hammond Road dealing with this paperwork of your arrest, you're going to need some phone numbers. Okay, so That was absolutely the most insane night. Just the events around the fender bender, finding out that I had a warrant while also maybe having a concussion, coming home, just everything about that night was absolutely surreal. And so I wasn't even prepared for what happened once I got past seeing the magistrate and learning that, I had, I had this warrant, why it was, and it was for a text message, and when I read it and I went I was like, "That motherfucking cunt bitch," is the first thing that came to my mind, and the deputy that was standing there with me, he goes, "Words I can't say in uniform, but I don't disagree with you, ma'am." I mean, it was just that insane. So again, a text message about his daughter's safety. Okay, whatever. And so at this point, I know that I have to stay in until 10 a.m. the next morning. And so I don't know what real jail, because now I know I'm not just getting paper arrested and processed out the front door. To come back later, I know that I'm actually going to have to, they're going to put me somewhere to sleep and they're going to have to, process me. And so they put me in a holding room, and the whole time that they're walking me there, they're apologizing. "I'm so sorry, Jillian. I'm so sorry it's happening to you. This is not how the system is supposed to work. I'm so sorry that motherfucker cunt bitch did this to you." Like, I mean, everybody is apologizing. And they also were being very kind and helpful because I have Sjogren's. And once I was arrested, my hands were behind my back. I instantly my mind panicked and I was like, "Oh my God, how am I going to get water?" And the deputy was so sweet. He goes, "Hey, we have a bottle of water here with you for you with a straw. Anytime you want it, let us know." Well, I mean, it was just, they were as kind as they could be given the situation. So anyway, so they put me in the holding room. There's probably 6 or 8 other girls in there, and they're just kind of laughing and hanging out. Like, not that it's a joke or whatever, but I mean, what are you going to do? Sit there and lick the floor? I mean, stare at the wall? I mean, so it just seemed pretty normal to me that they would be engaging with the other women that were in there. And so I come in and now I'd gone to work that day. I'd worked a 10-hour day, a 10-hour shift at the store, came home for 1 second to pee, went to Target, realized I needed to get my medicine from Target, dealt with that fender bender, which seamlessly and without pause transitioned into the arrest. And I wake up at 4:45 in the morning because I like to get a lot of shit done in the morning before I go to work and before the day starts, because I am trying to, build my podcast and write my memoir and just, do things for me personally. So I'd been up since 4:45 in the morning at that time. And so I'm kind of in there and I'm just trying to make friends. I'm just like, "Hey, what do we do here? What happens next?" And it was very obvious, not that I don't want to stereotype. I don't want to make it sound like because I'm a white woman with red hair, I don't look like I belong in jail. I don't want to say that. But I was still wearing my work clothes. I was I think it was very obvious that I this was my first time. It was my first day at school. And so they were all being very kind in that regard and kind of explaining things to me. And but what I realized was how cold it was in that room there. And I mentioned to them, I'm like, "It is so cold in here." And one of the girls commented, she goes, "Yeah, I was just transferred in from Samson. I knew when I heard they were coming to pick me up because my boyfriend tipped me off. We saw him at the BP, and I knew they were coming. I went and put my long johns on, my my big hoodie sweatshirt. Like, she knew it was going to be cold AF in there." And I later found out, just in chit chatting with the correction officers and things like that, it's kept cold so that germs can't grow, which I appreciate that. Now, at that time, I was wearing flip flops because that's what I had just thrown on when I'd taken my heels off from work, and a thin kind of silk blouse. Like, I was not prepared for 55-degree weather, sitting on concrete underground, on top of it. So the walls were, I said, they were concrete. And there wasn't even like that molded plastic, like when you ride the subway in New York, it's all still solid surface, but it's molded. There's a little contour for your lumbar. Yeah, there was no lumbar contour. It's all concrete. The walls were absolutely covered in grime, just like, I don't want to say tar, but just this sticky, just grime. It was all I could do not to be like, if you got some degreaser and a silicone scraper in here, we can just knock this down in no time and have a clean little holding. Yes, it's cold. Yes, it's concrete, but it could be cleaned very easily. That's what I'm thinking. And then I look over and one of the girls is there's a toilet in the center of our little holding room. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I peed before I went to Target. I'm kind of estimating what time because there's no clocks and I don't have my cell phone. I don't have my watch. So I'm kind of estimating what time it is. And it's probably, 11 o'clock at this point in my mind. And I'm like, I haven't peed since 6. And I was like, and I'm not going to pee until 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Like, I am not peeing on a toilet in front of everybody. That changed as the hours progressed. But they're taking the toilet paper and, wetting it like a spitball and throwing it up to block the vent because, they're like, it's too cold in here for you. Like you need to get a blanket. So one of the girls was there's a button on the wall, kind of like a flight attendant call button, like, hey, can I get a Diet Coke refill? There's a button that then you can talk to the correction officers from the holding room. And thank God these girls knew all this. And so she's hitting the button. She's like, "Hey, we need some blankets in here. It's too cold. We need some blankets." And she looks at me and then she looks back at the speaker and she goes, "We got a white girl in here with purple feet." And I died because I hadn't even thought about. I knew I was cold in general, and my Sjogren's does kind of play into just that whole thing as well, just with my extremities not being as warm as they should be. But I looked down at my toes, y'all. They were legit purple, and I legit needed a pedicure. I was like, of all times, to like let my mani petties slip. I look all haggard, but I'm on my toes. But anyway, so the officer comes by and says, I can't bring you blankets in here, but once you dress out, you'll get blankets in your jumpsuit and all that. At that moment, I never thought I would wish for a prison jumpsuit more than in that moment because my thought was, okay, they're going to be thicker material. They're going to be bulky. I can probably curl up in it. The sleeves and legs will be longer than my little bird arms need. So that'll kind of give me a way to get warm. And I was hoping that it also came with socks. I was like, "Can I get some socks?" So, about the phone, that's something I wanna tell you. So, I, of course, thought I don't have my cell phone because I couldn't find it, but come to find out, the deputy found it, and anyway. And so but I had written down one number on a sheet of paper before I left my kitchen just so I'd have that. And I'm thinking that it's like you hear on TV or reading books, you get one phone call. And I always thought to myself when I heard that, damn, I hope they answer. Hope they're not screening calls. I hope they're not vacuuming. And they don't hit like I really thought it was one call, but no, we had unlimited access to the telephone when we were in that room, which was very comforting because if the person didn't answer, because you have to well, you have a call from an inmate at Wake County Detention Center, push 5. So there's a lot of kind of connections that have to work out for the call to actually go through. So a couple of mine did slip through and not connect. So, but when you pick up the phone to dial out, it records all the calls. So it starts a timestamp at the time that the call started when it was my turn to use the phone, and they were all very kind. They are all like, "Hey, she's been here." Like, 2 more girls processed in, and they were trying to get to the phone, and the girl that called out my purple toe, she's like, "No, no, white girl been here. It's her turn next to the phone. No, it's her turn." Like, she was really keeping law and order in there because I don't know this dynamic. Again, it's my first day at school. I don't know how to work the lunch line. I don't know where the 2% milk is. Like, I don't know. And so when I pick up the phone to dial out my first call, it was 1111. And, uh, and for all the insanity that had happened in my life from the last year, but just the last few hours, I said, "Okay, universe, I feel like you got me. Like I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel like you got me, and this is going to be okay." Because 1111, the kind of the joke is make a wish, blah blah. So I was able to get my call out, and that's when I kind of learned um, a little bit more about the process because they're like, yeah, we're upstairs trying to, because again, I'm thinking you just get a bail bondsman like on TV with the beard and the Oakley glasses. And, and they're like, yeah, we were here to bail you out. We're trying to get you out, but you're not eligible for bail because it's DV. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of picking up the pieces of that here. And again, I'm trying to process all of that. And so just to kind of hear it a second time, kind of help me process that, yeah, you're going to be here overnight. So the time goes by and I just would pick up. the phone every few minutes, and see what time it was. Um, because again, I didn't have a watch, there was no clocks on the wall, didn't have a phone, and it becomes I didn't realize how disorienting it is not to know what time it is. And that is one I have a lot of takeaways, but that is one takeaway that I have, uh, prior to prior to going to jail. I really had a love-hate relationship with the clock. I felt like the clock 4:45, gotta get up, 6:15, gotta work out, 7:15, leave for work. Like, I felt like the clock really controlled my life, and then to not have it, it felt even more out of control. And so it definitely did realign and kind of reset my relationship with time and clocks and schedules and things like that. But anyway, so all the girls have kind of been taken out at this point, and my friend before she left, she goes, "Okay, they're gonna put you in a room two by two. Don't worry, they're gonna bring you something to eat too. They're gonna dress you out. Just it's gonna be okay. I'll see you in the morning. I'll see you in the morning." And I'm like, "Okay, do we like have recess? Do we all gather around the free lending library? What do you mean? How are you going to see me in the morning?" And I'll tell you that in a minute. Anyway, so I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm freezing. My toes are purple. I'm now in this room by myself with no clock, and it's concrete walls, it's underground. And I'm not going crazy because I was really working to control my mind, control my thoughts, use this as an opportunity, use this as a clean space to really think. There was no distractions. There was no phone. There was no emails popping up. Like, let me really get my thoughts straight on something while I'm in this space like this. And so it was about 2:30 in the morning. Now, keep in mind, I'm getting very close to my 24-hour mark of being awake. And I was very mindful of that as well. I was really trying to protect my mind and my mental health at this moment of it because I knew that was the only way I was going to get out. I knew that I had to, if I just went crazy, they're going to throw me in a padded room and I'd be there for a year. And so I knew I really had to keep my shit together. And so they take me out, and before I get dressed out, they fingerprint me and they take my mugshot and they do all this. And all I could think of was, okay, can I put a disclaimer on this? Can I put a little asterisk that says, "This photo was taken at almost 24 hours awake. I was supposed to wash my hair this morning, but I didn't because I was running late and I had it up in hairpins. But you can't wear hairpins in jail." Again, things I didn't think about. If only I'd had a ponytail holder. And so my hair doesn't look like, there were so many things I wanted to say, like in the disclaimer about my mugshot. But, the internet responded and said I look, I think it was 60. What was the consensus? Yeah, bish. You go through a year like this and I haven't had Botox done either? Yeah, I'm not surprised I look 60, but so got all that done. I get downstairs and I see the word shower. And I'm like, because y'all know how good a shower feels. And I've been in athletics. I was an athlete all through school. Yes, cheering is a sport and we are athletes, okay? And so at that point, I didn't care if it was an open community shower. Like, I wanted to just feel the warm water, just that to get warm. But just it's very relaxing and soothing to take a shower. So I saw that. I've never been so happy in my life to read the word shower. And that's when the lady that was the correction officer that was walking me, she goes, "Oh no, honey, you have to be here 24 hours before you get a shower. We're just here to dress." And I'm like, okay. No problem. Again, I'm thinking about the big, jumpsuit I'm gonna get and the socks, and the blanket, and the girls before I left the holding cell really gave me a tutorial on how to fold them up because you get 2 days worth of everything in your disbursement. So you have some on, but then you also have the other set that you can really get creative with on how to make a pillow and how to, because it's all concrete. There's no like little foam pad, there's no pillow, there's nothing. You're really like a rat in a cage. Is because there's no accoutrement in there for comfort. So I am, looking forward to this. And so she hands me my little burrito, as I've learned that they call it. And at an instinct, I reach up to pull a curtain closed in my little cubby, and I realize, of course, it's jail. There's no curtain. Okay, and so I realize she's going to stand there. And so normally when I get dressed, especially when it's cold, I take my pants off, I put my pants on. I take my shirt off, I put my shirt on. Like I do it in order because I don't want to just be butt ass naked. And so I realized that I'm not able to do that. Like I have to get completely naked. And then that's when she hits me with, our gymnastics. And she's like, hey, I need you to squat down and cough 3 times. Sorry. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not a guy getting a prostate exam. Like, and then I'm like, okay. And I will say, for as humiliating of an experience that is as a human, the correction officer that was there for me handled it in the most, I don't want to say professional, but just kind. She couldn't look away, but she was also not trying to get all up in it. She was trying to give me the dignity and the respect that anyone would have wanted. So I did really take note of that. And as I'm talking to her, the girl behind the counter that issues our outfits. She goes, wait a minute, I recognize your voice. Do you have a podcast? And I said, yeah, I do. She goes, oh my God, my daughter listens to it. She got me hooked on it. I really love it. Your husband's a real asshole. And I'm like, oh, girl, you don't even know the levels to asshole that it's almost, that we should clap and applaud. I mean, it's almost impressive. And so I kind of quickly explained. She goes, yeah, well, why are you here? And I said, I sent a text message. She goes, a text message. I said, yeah, well, I voluntarily agreed to a DVPO because he didn't like his name and photos in the podcast. She goes, oh, shit, girl. Oh, shit. Why'd you do that? Again, trying to keep the peace, not realizing the small Santa Claus print that it gives him basically a 24/7 open arrest warrant for me. So we're kind of chit chatting, as girls do, in the jail, probably 2 o'clock in the morning. At this point, so I get put in my cell with a girl who's already in there, and she was doing exactly what I was thinking of doing. She had kind of taken her outfit, her jumpsuit. Let's call it a jumper. Calling it a jumper sounds cuter. And so she had taken her jumper and put it up over her head, so the neck was like on her head, and then she buttoned it. So she was in there. And not only was she in her own little cocoon, but it also kept her from having to like lay on the concrete or utilize her other clothes articles to make the bed pillow thing that that my girl that had kind of given me the rundown on. And of course, it's 2 in the morning. She's sleeping. Or I hope she's sleeping. And I know that I need to get to sleep to protect my mental sanity because we're approaching the 24-hour mark. So I couldn't really do the whole sausage encasing like she was doing. Just couldn't quite get I couldn't get the angle right. That's what she said. So I couldn't get it all kind of. But I just I fell back on my training of how to kind of fold the stuff and make a little bed pillow and all that. So I went that route. But also too, at that point, it wasn't hard to fall asleep. I was tired AF. So I wake up to this voice says, "You want to eat?" I was like, "Oh God, what day is it? What year is it? Like, where am I? Oh yeah, I forgot I'm underground and I'm in jail." And they hand us a bag with a sandwich, a bag of chips, cookies. And y'all remember those bags? They're not Ziploc bags, but the top of them folds over. And so they had bought like a bulk pack of cookies, and they put 2 cookies in that little fold over bag. And I really took note of that because it just felt like it was nostalgic. It took me back to elementary school when I would bring my lunch, and that's how my cookies would be sorted, because we didn't have the pre-made ones like we have now, or if we did it, they were, expensive, where they're already 4 cookies in a thing that's pre-sealed and, whatever. And so it just really kind of took pause. And I quickly asked that guy, I said, hey, what time is it? He goes, about 5:30. I'm like, fuck, it's only 5:30 and make it till 10? What am I going to do in here for 5 more hours? And I was like, okay, we need to sleep. We need to sleep in order to kind of, just be our best selves for the 10 o'clock. And I knew that I was meeting with the judge through Zoom, from the jail. I was going to call in on the little telephone. So I knew I wasn't going to have to actually go somewhere, but I still wanted to kind of be my best self. So I'm trying to get back to sleep. Next thing I know, I feel a phone hit me. And I'm like, and sausage encasing girl in my room had gotten that when you get into your actual cell, they have a cordless phone that gets passed around. And holding it's a corded phone on the wall like the old payphones were. But she goes, hey, I'd gotten the phone for myself, and I just wanted to see if you wanted to use it before I returned it back to the guards. And I thought that was just so sweet. we've talked on this podcast about, being mindful of others' needs and not being selfish and looking out for others. And that was just for someone I didn't know, and because she was sleeping when I got put in, but for her to think that I may need to make a phone call, and I'm like, "Yeah, actually, I do." And so I had my little sheet of paper with my number, so I'm calling my one point of contact, who's then kind of relaying all the information out to all the other spokes in the wheel and getting information back to me. And so I was able to get that call out and also to, see what time it was. And at that point, it was about 8:30, and I thought to myself, "Okay, I can do this. I have kept my sanity through a freezing cold room that was dirty, that, just everything. And I've been able to keep my sanity. I can do this. I'm so close to I'm so close to the finish line here. My next thought, so then the guard comes by and he's like, "Hey, Utesch, we need to take you to the nurse." And I'm like, I don't need to go to the nurse. Now, I was getting concerned because I wear daily lenses and I was, reaching I was well past the expiry time of my daily lenses, but I didn't want to take them out because I have an asymmetrical astigma, and it gives me a headache the way the light hits my eyes if I don't. So I was like, okay. And there's a lot of light in prison or in jail. Let me tell y'all, okay. The lights never turn off. There's no curtain or wind or yeah, curtain or blind or anything to kind of, shield it. So it was full on light. And I was like, okay, I got to find a solution to this. And I was starting to think through also at that point when he mentioned the nurse around that same time, I was thinking, how do I get my medications? What I had ultimately gone to Target to get I don't want to say that started this in process because this was already in process for days. That accident just kind of brought it to the top of brought it to the top of the water. I don't know with any certainty, and I don't believe it to be true, but in my mind, I think that that the sheriff's department sat on it for a couple of days because they were when he filed it on Saturday, I didn't go until Tuesday. They weren't at my door Sunday morning at 8 a.m. is what I'm saying. And so I don't know when they would have come in that week had that incident not happened that kind of just brought it to the top. But anyway, so I'm thinking, I'm like, yeah, let's go with the nurse because I need to talk about my contacts. I got needs. I need to talk about, my, I need face moisturizer. I need chapstick. Again, I have Sjogren's. I'm not able to regulate my mucous membranes as well as other people are. And so I get into the nurse's office and she was so sweet. And the very first thing that she said, "Do you need a pregnancy test?" No. The internet already said I look 60 years old, nor have I been engaging in any activity. No, I do not need a pregnancy test. And she goes, "Okay, do you need an STD test?" Those were the first two questions. And that really resonated with me. The third question was, "Do you have any open cuts or wounds that need immediate dressing?" That was not the first question. That was the third question. So it kind of just started to open my eyes about just what goes down where we are, kind of what I can expect moving forward. And I was like, no, I don't. I don't have any open wounds. I don't need a pregnancy test and I don't need an STD test. And she pushes back and she says, "It's free. It's included." And I had to bust out laughing. I think because I hadn't had much human interaction, in the last 2 hours, but it was just her choice of word, "It's included," because my mind instantly went to like those all inclusive vacations where, your food and wine are included. Like your pregnancy test, your STD test are included with your one night stay in the local jail. And then I said, "No, I'm good." She pushed a third time and she goes, "This is HIPAA. All of your results will stay private. Even though you're in jail, we don't release them. Your attorney won't know, da, da, da," which I guess is probably questions or concerns that other women had when they came through about those things. So that was also very eye opening to me. And so we finally were able to get past, I was not pregnant. I did not have a fear of an STD and I did not have any open wounds. And so we then kind of start talking about, I was like, how do I get, because in my mind, I'm kind of 50-50 at this point. I thought I was going to be arrested on paper, walk in, walk out, come back and deal with this tomorrow, like Scarlett. To now that I've spent a night in jail, now I'm starting to think I may never get out of here. This is just my future. Because your mind starts to play tricks on you when you're in that experience because it's just not a normal human thing to experience. So adjusting to it, especially for the first time, took a minute for me to do. And so I was like, I said, "No, I need to get contacts and I need to, or get someone to bring me my glasses. Like, how does this work? How do I get a care package?" delivered and I need my medications. And she goes, well, we can reach out to your prescribing doctors and we can get them sent in. We have to verify that, that. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, it's going to be 3 to 5 days before I get my medication. And I was like, and my TD is going to be out of control. I'm going to be shaking. Like I start thinking about all the things that I'm then going to have to deal with on top of having to deal with being in jail. That then reminds me, there was a part of the story I skipped over that I want to tell y'all because it was so funny. When I was in the holding cell when I first got there, the cold, dirty room with the spitballs on the ceiling, my friend looks at me after she's trying to get the blanket, and she looks at me. She goes, "When did you pee last?" I said, "Well, I think about like 6 o'clock when I got home from work." She goes, "No, no, you're gonna sit on that toilet and you're gonna pee." And I was like, "Okay." Not to be Nancy Drew here, but that toilet is in the middle of the room and the room has glass walls and there's steady people walking by. Now I realize not everybody's gonna be walking by wanting to stare at me, but it is a very vulnerable, awkward situation to be in. To not only have to pee in a room with strangers, which again, they're chit chatting, they're eating their sandwiches, they're not staring at me, but it's still just kind of weird. And you've got people walking by the outside. And because of where that room is by the magistrate, we had male inmates walking by for their turn to see the magistrate, even though I didn't get to benefit from that, but whatever, the magistrate. And so she goes, "No, you're going to sit on that toilet and you're going to pee." She goes, "This is the last place you want to be and have a UTI." And that really struck me because I take for granted, I don't now that I've been in jail, at just having access to simple things like if you get a UTI or if you get a yeast infection or y'all know, well, the girls listening know, that is debilitating. That is instant. You don't get a ramp up. You just know, you just wake up in the morning and you're like, yeah. And so she was right. And so I peed, not to get TMI, but it was one of those ones where you have to take a breath, you have to stop, take a breath, and then go again. And so I was so glad that she kind of tough loved me into doing it, but also she stood in front of me. Now, granted, we're in a glass room with people all around, there's no curtain. But she stood in front of me at such an angle that it kind of blocked me to the main population of the room. And it did obstruct the view of the people walking by on the outside. So that just, again, I know this sounds super weird, but that just gave me a great level of comfort for my first pee in jail. I later got really good at it, but like all things, you adapt. But I will set in on my resume, since people can, when people Google me now, my mugshot, comes up. So I may as well just go ahead and get ahead of it on my resume and say, can pee well in jail. Has quickly adapted to that. But anyway, so go back to that morning with the nurse. And so I didn't really get my fears calmed about how quickly I was going to get access to my medication. Um, then she goes, "Oh, I see here you have Asperger's. We can put a rush on this." Thank you. Because the last place I want to lose my mind is up in here. Or should I say down in here, because I was underground. And so they walked me back to my room. And I'm like, okay, I got 1 more hour. I can do this. I've got 1 more hour. I can. And so then I hear all this cheering going on. "Whoa, girl, you got your blue sheet." And I'm like, okay, okay. 9 o'clock. I'm still, running on fumes from not having slept very well for many hours the night before. But I'm like, I'm down. Okay. 9 a.m. jailhouse party with the girls. Yeah, yeah. I'm down. Get your 2% milk out, y'all. And so I learned from my cellmate who had been in a couple of times before, and I'll go into her story, all the stories of the women that I was in with. I'll go into their stories in another podcast episode. Um, it was but to touch on that point, it was very eye opening for me to learn to meet so many new women that I wouldn't have normally met in my life, probably. And to hear their stories and to hear the alignment and the similarities and the general fucked upness with their stories that created the situations for them to be there. And it really made me think, we can do better. We can do better as a society. We can do better as people. We can do better at protecting each other, so that women don't find themselves in situations like these ladies did, like I did, where you're in a jail throwing spitballs or toilet paper spitballs up on the ceiling to try to block the air conditioning. Um, So I hear all this yelling, and my cellmate explains to me she's getting her blue sheet, which means you're getting out. That's when your blue sheet comes through, you're going home. And so they're all cheering because hers came through. And at that point, my friend from the night before, she walked by my cell, which of course is glass like a aquarium, because there is a bathroom in the hallway. So when you get into your cell, you still have a toilet, which the two of you can use, you know, and it's just that person in there. But you can also ask, like, "Hey, I need to do a number 2. Can I go to the," and when I say private bathroom, it has a door. It doesn't lock, but it still has a door, which does, make it a little bit more comfortable to do number 2, than just in the room with your cellmate, even if she is in her little sausage casing kind of, hanging out. But anyway, so what my friend from the night before, had done, she wanted to say hi to me, because she'd said, "I'll see you in the morning," and I'm like, "What, at recess?" She walks by and she's like, "Hey girl, you're doing good. You're doing good." And she's like, "It's almost 10. It's almost 10." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. It's almost 10." Like I needed that. Like I needed that just familiarity, that normalcy that I felt like I had a lot of people on my side. So I don't want to discount it in any capacity, but in that moment, for my mental state, I really needed that. And I think she knew that. So she asked to go to the bathroom, like 8th grade, so that she could wave at me in my aquarium. And it was really sweet. But so I learned about, the blue sheet. So 10 o'clock rolls around. I have my meeting. Listen to me, calling it a meeting like we're civilized adults. I have my inmate, acquaintance with the judge. So I have my first appearance over the telephone, and basically they're like, "Yeah, get the hell out of here! Like you don't even have a parking ticket. Like why are you here?" I'm like, "What?" There's a guy out there with his dick in a twist who probably was dancing on rose petals all night with the concept of me experiencing what I just kind of shared with you. And so I go back to my cell and I'm like, okay, it's nice to meet you. I'm like, saying goodbye to my cellmate. Great to see you. I go to the back. I follow my girl's model. I go ask to go to the bathroom so I can go say goodbye to one of my other girls that I'd met. And I was like, hey girl, you got to make it. And she was in for 19 days. So she knew that they were going to process her upstairs to jail. And so, but I still wanted to give her that little cheer, that little, "Hey, there's someone here cheering for you. You're not just put in this aquarium to die." And so I come back, I go to the bathroom, I come back to the room, and I'm like, "All right, so, does the blue sheet come off of a facsimile? Does the blue sheet do we need to get an Uber delivery to go? Because it apparently has to come from the courthouse." And I'm like, "So does someone drive it? Is there one of those long tubes like they have at the bank when you send your deposit?" They made it sound like getting it from the courthouse to the jailhouse, was this big endeavor. And so I then kind of start to adjust my expectations. Like, it's not just bang the gavel and you're out, which is what I thought in my mind. That was my wishful thinking. That was my rational thinking. And so I resigned myself. Okay, it's gonna be a couple hours. No worries. We'll hang out. We'll chit chat. My girl was in there, and I got to hear her story and just, all that. Well, shift change comes about 1 o'clock and they start rounding up those of us that were, kind of still there. It's like, okay, you need to, burrito up your blankets, which I remembered back from I can't say the night before, the morning before, when I was issued my things, that they were all wrapped in a little blanket and with a little envelope tuck. Kind of like how you would fold, when you would pass notes in school, like either across the room or into a locker, and they were kind of folded and tucked in, like that's kind of how it was. And so I get my stuff, and by stuff I mean my extra pair of socks, my extra jumper, just all that. And I burrito it into my blanket and I'm holding it. I'm like, okay, they're going to want me to put it in the laundry. Like, I'm just going to be a good house guest. I'm going to drop this in the laundry basket on my way out the door. Thanks for having you, made some memories, but peace out, homie. Then I realize that she's lining us up 2 by 2, and another officer is coming through the center and handcuffing us. And now I have very thin wrists. I do bruise very easily, and I had ridden, 35, 40 minutes in a car with my hands behind my back, just rubbing on. you know, so my hands were very bruised. I mean, it looked a lot worse than it was, but it did look horrific. And, I'm so white, I'm like transparent. So the bruises were just that much more, 'cause I haven't got much, I do have a tanning bed as I talk about for mental health, but not for actual, tanning. So I was, transparent. So she's lining us up and she's like, and the girls knew this. They knew this dance routine from, I guess, from being there before. And so you have your burrito on your outside arm and she is handcuffing on the inside arm. And she gets to me and she goes, "Oh, I just feel so bad even putting this on you." She goes, "Do you need to go see the nurse? Is it hurt?" I said, "No, it looks a lot worse than it is. But I do have an autoimmune disease that does make this look even more amplified than it really is." And she goes, "God, I hate it." She did. She was a human. And she sat there and she yells to the lady at the desk and she goes, "Utesch, did she get out this morning?" I said, "Yeah, I had court at 10 and the judge said I could go." I didn't need bail. And that was another thing I learned when I was in jail. Kind of like when you're outside in the real world, and you go to a cocktail party, people ask, "What's your job? What do you do for a living? What's your career?" And you're very much defined by that part of your life. In jail, the first question they ask you is, "What's your bond? But how much you got for bond? Who's your bondsman?" And then the second question is, "What are you in for?" And I kept hoping to find someone who was in for like, murder or like, no, it was all very, like I kind of alluded to earlier, really sad situations that came up. Uh, like for example, one of the girls, and I won't tell you how long because I'm going to, but I want to go down a tangent. One of the girls was there because she purposely sold drugs to an undercover agent because she wanted to come to jail that was safer for her than the situation she was in with her pimp. Yes. So when I tell y'all these stories, it's yeah. Um, and then in my mind, I have to process that my husband did this to me knowingly, willingly, and with purpose when he could have filed a civil contempt. He could have said, "Yes, she texted me. That is a contempt of this document. Let me file a civil." No, he chose to do criminal. And so that I'm still kind of trying to process that even to this day. I'm trying to process just who the fuck does that? Like, who, what level of monster do you have to be to get to a place, no matter how much you dislike someone, no matter how, and look, and I get he hates me, I get it, but you need to have enough. I think one of our followers, she said it perfectly, to have impulse control. He needed enough impulse control and he had a hobby deficit. He had nothing else to do. And when I read that comment, I just busted out laughing because I said, "Yeah, that's him. Lack of impulse control and a hobby deficit." Yes. But anyway, so she's kind of lining us all up to go upstairs. And so she yells over to the counter, "Hey, has Utesh's blue sheet not come through yet?" And I'm sitting in there like, "Yeah, yeah. Where's my blue sheet? I'm springing out of here. Like, I need to go." And again, I have nowhere to go, nothing to do because many people still think I had only just had a car accident because just information, it happened too quickly. It happened. And in what sequence, in what world do those sequence of events come together that you naturally think that anyhow. So no one's, really looking for me. That I knew that I, didn't have any work that day. And so but to that point, me, the human, I'm wanting to be outside in the sunshine. I'm wanting to not be freezing cold. I wanting to not be underground with concrete. Like I'm just wanting not to be in this environment. Like who would? And so they go, "No, it hasn't come back yet. I think we'll get it about 3 because they're still morning court is still in session and they got to move to afternoon court. And, I think by 3. And I look at the clock and I'm like, I gotta make it to 3 now? So it's like first I was trying to just hold out until I got put in a cell with my cellmate. That was gonna be my first like milestone. Then I was trying to hold out until 10 o'clock in the morning when I'd had my court. Then I'm trying to hold out till 3, like, okay, I can do this. And so then I asked one of the other girls, I'm like, where are we going? Like, I was completely fine in my little cell, like with my little toilet and my concrete wall. Like, why? I didn't ask to go anywhere. Like, where are we going? She goes, "Girl, we're going to jail, like upstairs jail." And I'm like, I'm sorry, no, unsubscribe. I unsubscribed from that opportunity. Do not want to go to upstairs jail. I just acclimated to downstairs holding. And so, because they had nowhere, they had to get us out of that space because they had more people to, more people to bring into that space. So we're walking upstairs and we're trying to kind of walk, again, we're chained together, and we're carrying our burritos. And so we're kind of trying to shimmy down this, hallway and not step on each other's toes. And one girl's singing, and I really appreciated hearing her sing because I hadn't heard music or TV or had any art in the time that I was down there. So hearing her sing, I think it was the best song I've ever heard because it was, just I don't even know what she was singing, but working on the chain gang, I don't know. But just to hear that brought me again, it was normalcy. It kind of brought in some life, from the outside world. And the girl in front of me was kinda hobbling, and I was like, "What's up, girl?" Like, why you hobbling?" Like, "What's going on?" I said, Is your croc" they weren't really Crocs, they looked like Crocs. I was like, "Is your croc not fitting you well? Like, what's going on?" And she's like, "No, I twisted my ankle." When she and I again, I want to get down the tangent, but on her way to jail, she twisted her ankle trying to get her dog. Oh, anyway, I'm about to tell you the story, and I'm not going to. But anyway, so we're all kind of trying to be mindful of her. So we get to the first pod or room or whatever, and so they had three empty rooms there. So she's yelling off the names of the people who are going to be in those. And okay, you go to room number 7, and you get your individual little suite in jail. And so they're telling them what numbers, and then I realize I'm still on the chain. And I'm like, "Okay." She goes, "Oh, I'm gonna bring you we're gonna put you down here with the ladies who have been here a while. They're a little bit calmer." And I'm like, again, appreciate it. Really love that you're thinking this through, Miss, corrective officer. But I'm getting out of here. Like, why? So then I start in my mind going, oh, fuck, am I not going to get out of here? Does she know something I don't know? My first thought was, did that cunt bitch motherfucker do something else to get me to stay in here longer? Was the absolute first thought that came to my mind. But come to find out, she really was just trying to make me as comfortable as she could because the first little pod was a little rowdy. I mean, there was some hair pulling going on and not the good way. There was a situation with the checkers board. Like there were some situations going on. And so I was happy to get to the next pod where it was a little bit was a little bit quieter. And she goes, "Okay, go to room 4." And at this point, again, not wanting to get a UTI, I'm like, "Hey, can I use the bathroom before?" Because I'm drinking water like it's going out of style with my Sjogren's. And so I was like, "Can I go to the bathroom before I go to my room?" Because I didn't want to use the potty in my room. I didn't know if I was gonna be by myself or if I was gonna have a roommate, or what the situation was gonna be. And at that moment, the officer behind the desk said, "Hey, we got a Utesch in here." Like, it harkened back to, like, elementary school when the teacher is calling for, like, the line leader or is calling for, "Who wants to take this note to Miss room for me?" I'm like, I mean, I've never been so happy to hear my own name. So now I'm off the chain, and the same nice lady has to carry me back downstairs to holding. So now I just get normal handcuffs, not the chain handcuffs, because I'm, a threat to society. And she goes, "I'm gonna put him in the front. I think you're okay." Even though I'm there for DV, domestic violence, it was that little moment of kindness was not lost on me. And I think she really felt bad because my wrists were jacked up, y'all. So we're walking downstairs, and she goes, "Oh, I heard from whoever in laundry that about your podcast. We've been listening to it. That's some fucked up shit." And this is not a racial slur, y'all. I'm just telling you how it happened. She goes, "That is some rich white people bullshit." And I was like, "Yeah, it is rich white people bullshit. Like, this is something I shouldn't be here taking up your time," is what I told her. I was like, you have other people to do. Again, not that anyone's crime is more than the other. I'm not trying to say I'm superior, but um, I was like, "Yes, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have taken the time of the girls upstairs to fingerprint me, to do my mugshot, to meet with the magistrate. I shouldn't have had to take all these people's time." Um, were basically because I sent him a text message that the sheriff was looking for our daughter, and I was concerned. That's not a crime to do that. But anyways, we get back downstairs, and she sits me kind of in there's these. Think of like a doctor's waiting office or waiting room with the chairs. So there's kind of this little island of chairs out in the center, where you can see a clock, which just again weird things that just brought me comfort to be able to see a clock and just to see the activity. That morning after I'd finished breakfast, while I was kind of trying to talk myself into going back to sleep, like 'cause it was only 5:30, one of the doors across the hall from me, someone had punched it, but it's that safety glass, so it didn't break, but it still looked like a spider web. I watched one of the maintenance men repair that for like the most fascinating 20 minutes of my life. I was like, oh, go slower, repair that window slower. Like it just gave me something to look at, gave me something to engage with than just a wall. And so she sits me down there and I could see that it was, 2:15, 2:30, something like that. And I'm like, okay, I got 30 more minutes. I can ride out. I can sit here. This is good. It's not cold AF out here. I can see some activity. I can hear the girls at the desk chit chatting about their weekend and their upcoming spring break plans. Like I can do this. Well, next thing I know, she's like, "Oh, I need Utesch. We need to come back over here." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. Utesch got a blue sheet. Utesch getting out of here. Utesch don't need to be here anymore." And so she puts, and I basically told the officer that, and she goes, "Yeah, well, we have to process something else. We're waiting for another piece of paper to come in. We're just going to put you here because we can't have you loose." Kind of trying to make a joke, and I think she could tell by because I've not been getting my Botox done. Thank you, internet. I think she could tell by my face that I was not happy about going in back in a cell when I progressed out enough to be in the waiting room. And she goes, "But the good news is I can take your handcuffs off." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, that is, I will take that, positive. You took I can take my handcuffs off." And so then 2 girls from the night before get put in that room with me because they had bonded out. And one of them was very concerned because the person who paid her bond is not someone that she really likes or someone that she wanted to be indebted to in that capacity. And I asked her, I said, "Could you refused it?" And she's like, "Yeah, like you don't have to." I didn't know. I mean, if somebody pays your bond, do you have to go out? Like, I don't know. And so she's like, "Yeah, I could have refused it." But she's like, "I just had to weigh something we talk about on the podcast a lot, picking your hard. In life, more often than not, our choices are not what is fun, what is good. Our choices pick your hard. Do you want to pick the heart of, working hard at a career, or do you want to pick the heart of being homeless because you have no money? Like, what do you want your heart to be?" And so she really had to make a hard decision about staying in jail and that experience and what that's like being underground or being indebted. And I can only imagine in what capacity and in what way she was in would have been well is now is indebted to this person. And I don't know if in that same situation, even though I was counting the hours to getting out, what I would have done. It really the entire experience of going to jail put scenarios and instances at the forefront of my mind to see what would I do. Like I was dyeing my hair the other night because I've been dyeing it at home since COVID. And as soon as I got the hair dye in my hair, I thought, "Oh God, please," because I live in fear every single day that something as benign. God, y'all, I took his name out of the contacts of my phone, his deleted my Google Cache so I can't accidentally email him. Like, I've just done all this stuff to prevent a fat finger. I don't wanna be emailing, Ryan, and I accidentally type in and, he's already shown he will waste no time swooping me up and throwing me into jail and over stupid shit. And so I got my hair dye in and I'm like, "Okay, it's gotta process for 45 minutes." It would be really bad if they came right now, because I heard I in. And what do you do then? Do you tell, "Sorry, Mr. Deputy, thanks for coming over. Totally get that you're just doing your job and totally get that I have a warrant, but I got hair dye in. So I can't really go to jail right now. Can I offer you a snack or you want to drive around the block, come back in 45 minutes?" Like, so I've started thinking of my life in that, capacity, which is a very interesting way to live. To kind of wrap up my overall experience, I just want to reiterate how nice and kind and professional everyone along the way was. From the deputies that picked me up, from the girls that processed me in, from the guard that helped me dress out, the ladies I met while I was in jail, the stories they shared to help me pass the time, and the tips they shared about making the burrito with their blankets. It also, and again, this is not a racial slur, but I'm just telling the story honest and raw how it happened. And when I was in that last cell, waiting for my blue sheet to come through, and they're kind of putting more and more girls in there that, were also kind of waiting to either go somewhere. One was waiting to transfer to another county because going back to kind of what I said earlier, they were overcrowded. There was a true, genuine over occupancy of people in that building, and why the fuck was I in there? Taking up space I didn't need, eating food that needed to go to someone else, like, they were really good with the food, like, they came around probably every 4 hours with food. I mean, I was offered more food than I eat in a normal day at home. As I'm waiting to check out, to check out, like it's a hotel. Sorry. I'm waiting to check out, and I was paying my room service bill. One of the girls in the cell with me, she's like, basically, I'm sorry this happened to you. Your husband's a cut bitch. We hate him, blah, blah. And she goes, now you know what it's like to be Black in America. And I paused because it had been I was the running joke. I was one of 3 white people, and again, this is not racial, this is not stereotype, I am just telling the story how it happened, to the point where they called out my purple toes, and so, it really opened my eyes that that was the situation, and how we need to fix that, but also, she did really touch on a part of my head, like, when I was doing my hair color. I'm always kinda looking over my shoulder now. I'm always kinda, are they coming for me? And I never felt that way before. Even in times in my life when I've done things that when weren't crimes, but I truly, was wrong and should be looking over my shoulder, I wasn't. Because it seemed like something that would never happen. It seemed like me going to jail would be like a dragon landing in my front yard and me climbing on the back of it and flying around the town. Like, that's how just beyond belief, beyond reality it was for me. Not anymore. So it really did help to open my eyes into that situation. There also is the joke now amongst the crew. My house number is 1720. And so we just had so much activity between stuff getting served, between the skits roommate, between this, that, the, and it's all just stupid bullshit that the joke became 1720. We got a 1720 in progress. We got a 1720. And so, the deputies were making funny about, making jokes about that. Basically a white people bullshit code. We got a 1720. That's some domestic white people bullshit going on over here. Like, it just kind of helped make it not feel so, to kind of put a bow on it, which I threatened to do earlier. It was like the last year of my life, like the nearly $100,000 I've spent with my attorney to try to get, and when I say divorce, I don't mean just sign a paper that says no. It's to separate our assets. When I've spent all this time and money to do this and have had no results, is absolutely a waste of time, energy, money. That's exactly what my night in jail was. Except I did get some really good takeaways. I did get a lot of awareness about myself. I did get to learn things like my friend shared this. Now you know what it's like to be Black in America. So there were a lot of, silver lining positive takeaways, but all in all, it was an absolute waste of time. And like the last year of my life, like the stormtroopers coming in my house, and I would not wish what I experienced on anyone, nor do I have the capacity. Even if you showed up at my house at 3 o'clock in the morning and crawled through my window, which someone did, I wouldn't send you in jail. I wouldn't, or you tried to chase me with it. I just do not have it in me to do that to someone, especially someone that I was married. I mean, they'd have to do something, epic, or especially over a text message where they were trying to communicate a threat, a safety concern about, a child. I know she's over 18, but of a child. I didn't expect him to be grateful because that's just not a capacity he has. I didn't expect him to be grateful. I didn't expect him to thank me for sharing the information. I didn't expect anything positive, but I sure as hell did not expect the bitch motherfucker to send me to jail.